Welcome back to the Mental Toughness and Body Show, where we go beyond not just the gym, but we go beyond that to talk peak performance, resilience, and building a powerful life. And I'm your host, Rob Evans. And today I'm joined by Rick Salmeron. He's a seasoned financial advisor based in the US and someone I deeply respect for his clear thinking and really calm presence, especially when the markets are anything but calm. And certainly at the time of recording this, there's been a lot of global uncertainty, certainly on the rise, cost of living, all that kind of thing. And look, from fluctuating stock markets to the geopolitical instability, what we're going to do today is really dive into really what it takes to build and protect wealth in turbulent times. So I want to get into it, and welcome to the show, Rick.
Thanks, Rob. I am honored in all caps to be here with you.
Nice. So at the time of recording this, I don't know how many days that Trump has been into power now. There's been a lot of conversations around tariffs and bargaining and all that kind of stuff. And it's just thrown the whole world up into a bit of a spin, and it's had an impact on, obviously, on Wall Street, the big markets around the world, including us here in Australia. So I want to get your perspective on, first of all, I'll use this example. I had a client that came into me, I think it was the day after that Trump came out and said about the tariffs and stuff. And here we were going to be hit by 25% here. And she came in and she was distraught. She said, I've just lost $20,000 off my superannuation, which is, I think that's the equivalent of your 401k over there. Is that what
Okay. Yeah.
that is?
Sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He said, I've just lost $20,000 off my super. And I said, just hold on a second. I said, how old are you? She's like in her 40s. I said, all right, well, for one, you can't touch your super here till you're at least 60. So I said, what you're talking about is an unrealized loss. And I said, just wait. I said, the stock market goes like this, but it always goes from here to here over time. So in 20 years' time, when you're ready to retire, you're going to be fine. So let's just relax a little bit. But
Mhm.
anyway, to start with, I just wanted to get your perspective on what you do, because I'm sure you get clients in these moments where there's a crash, whatever. Last big one being 2008, and your mindset and your initial reactions to clients when they come with those conversations.
No, it's natural. You wouldn't be human if you didn't feel fear or anxiety when you see the Australian version of the 401k, as you call it, go down, and the person that you speak with, a client of yours, oh my gosh, I've lost $20,000. Well, the truth is that the market has never lost anybody money. It's us humans that create the losses if we so choose. Every event that goes on, it's up to us to decide, is this a really bad moment for me, or is it a great moment for me? It's one of the two. But
Mhm.
the market does its thing. If a person is using the markets, the stock market, whether it be Wall Street or in Australia or somewhere else in the world, as a mechanism to grow and accumulate wealth. It's historically been a great place to put money. I'm a big fan of it. And that's for that reason, looking back at history, and that's the only guide that we have, the only direction that I see long term is up. But it
Yeah.
doesn't go there in a straight line. So when people use the markets as a way to accumulate and grow wealth, remember why you're doing it. I don't invest in the stock market with the thought of, I want to make sure that trade policy is calm and cool and harmonious. That's not why I invest in the markets. I invest in the markets because I know that over time, it's a really bad bet that the markets cannot overcome some great, incredible, powerful world event. The tariff thing was not small. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to minimize it, but it's really a small blip in many other world events if we look back in history. So when you take a look at the history as our guide, like I said, and there's no guarantee for the future, but as that guide, just know that there are behavioral mistakes that you can make when you're investing in the markets that really can cost you dearly. So don't feel it's okay to feel the fear and feel the nerves. That's completely normal. Just don't act upon that. That's when
Yeah.
the trouble occurs. And we are our worst enemies when it comes to that. It's again, it's not the markets do their thing. That's part of the ingredients of success. You have to be able to bear with that. You have to have faith and you have to have patience and you have to have discipline. Those three things, we control those things as individual investors, not the markets. The markets will always be full of unknowns. It's because of those unknowns that it creates the wealth for people. With taking that away means taking out the great moments and the great days and the great years. And we don't want that. As odd as it sounds, I actually want the uncertainty to continue for that reason.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Do you think that the difference between, say, the average person and your most successful investors is in these uncertain times, it's like you don't panic. You know that, like just what we've been talking about, you know that over time they always recover. And it's having the patience, I guess, and that sense of, yep, I'm gonna hold still here. But also there are opportunities in those moments as well, and the wise investors that are cashed up take advantage of those things as well. But yeah, just interested in your perspective between the mentally
Absolutely.
astute.
Yeah, it's all mental. It's all mental. So when prices, this is how I like to position it, reframe it this way. When prices go down in the markets, not when the market crashes, you can choose to use that word if you want, but when you say when prices go down with a good thing, I don't know about everyone else, but I like to buy things when they're at a discount. When I'm
Yeah,
in the grocery store and I'm walking by the frozen aisle and I see my favorite ice cream in the shelf and it's on sale at 20% off, I get excited.
yeah.
I start to pull a few more pints off of the shelf and put it in my shopping cart because I know that that price is not going to stay there forever. And when we have that same attitude, when market prices go down too, we should be excited, especially if we're on some kind of regular pattern of saving on an automatic basis. Is there a way that maybe we can squeeze in a few extra dollars at that moment? Because
Mm,
again, we have to have, as I mentioned earlier, faith. We have to have faith that if something is causing the markets to go down, and there always will be something, when that happens, we have to have faith that this is a temporary thing, whatever it is, that the world, that society, that government, or whatever will figure it out sometime. In fact, we're already seeing with the tariff trade wars, we're starting to see evidence of solutions out there, right? And when that happens, we're seeing the markets come back already. So when things go down, see it as a sale, see it as a discount, and know that that's a temporary window of time that could be there for you to buy more with the same amount of dollars. I kind of like that idea. So when you're again, long-term perspective, but see it as an opportunity, not something that you must pounce on, but it's seen as an opportunity and not a catastrophe.
I want to come back to what we're talking there and about getting the right advice and that kind of stuff. But before we do that, I did want to just as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about, oh, let's go to schools, I suppose, and I'm thinking about people's lack of financial literacy. And when I was at school, it wasn't taught here, and it's still not. And I think probably the most fundamental things of humanity are not taught in our schools still. And I'm sure that there'll be people listening to this now thinking, like, I haven't started in time, I'm behind, etc., etc. I mean, here in Australia, superannuation is compulsory. So if you're working,
Okay.
even if you're not contributing, because that's not compulsory, your employer is. So you've got a little egg building over somewhere, and it's just hopefully if you're
Okay.
contributing, it gets bigger and bigger, right? And I think the
Good.
current rates are, oh, now I'm going to embarrass myself. I think it's 12.5%, I'll say, something like that,
Okay.
maybe even higher.
Sounds
Um,
good.
so what's your perspective of what's it like in the US in terms of financial astuteness, whether we should be doing more to educate people more about how they can stretch their dollar, invest, build wealth, and
Sure, sure. I would not say that there's a surplus of financial education for people here. I
right.
think that goes without saying. That's probably the case in any country, most all countries, right? So we can take measures to incorporate more into schools, and I'm absolutely not opposed to that. I think that would be a really great idea. And at the same time, I would say the best instructor is real life lessons.
Yeah.
I had the fortunate experience of one day my mother taught me how to open my first savings account when I was 8 years old. And I'll
Mm.
never forget that day. It was on a Saturday morning. And with my allowance that I emptied out of my pockets, out of my pocket, and coins spinning on the counter, and my mother matched my $10 of allowance with her $10 bill. I opened up my first savings account with 20 bucks. And then 90 days later, I received my first statement in the mail, Rob, and that $20 grew to $20.15.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. I'm telling you this story. There's more details to the story, but I'm telling that to you as if it happened last weekend because I remember that. I
Mm.
remember that. So the true life experience made a huge impact on me. And
Yes.
it caused me to be a saver at a very young age. And it caused me to provide for my own financial security at a very young age. And it caused me to create this business that I have at a younger age. And now I'm sharing wisdom to others that for me, it's easy. And for those, it's more challenging. And I had the blessing of this young childhood experience, right? And I understand that not everyone has that, but that core life experience, especially as a child, can be very transformational. So the education in the school system, absolutely, for sure. If there's a way that we can squeeze that in amongst all the other general education, then more power to the system if they can pull that off. But at the same time, some of the best schools can be found at the home. Whether
Yeah.
you're a child and whether you're a parent, you've got children, start teaching them those very basic money lessons. That doesn't need to be extravagant at all. That creates a very lasting impression on them as a young age. And if you're an adult and you're looking back, oh, I wish I would have done this. I wish I should have started a long time ago. And now I'm in my 40s. Now I'm in my 50s. I know a lot of people are saying that. And I get that. And sure, the best time to create a forest, right, is when you start planting those seeds 20 years ago.
Mm.
But now the next best time is today. Next best time is today. So I'd encourage you, if you feel like you're behind the eight ball and narrowed into a corner, then it's simply a matter. It may not be easy, but it's as simple as changing some habits that you're currently doing now to move the needle in the direction of wealth accumulation that you want to find yourself on a journey.
I love that story you said about your mum. I mean, I came from a home with a poor money mindset, and I want to talk about your thoughts on money mindset in a second. But mum and dad never really had money, and where I learned it was in my first year at uni, the first semester. We did a subject that was called personal investment, and out of my entire 3-year course, that I think we did 2 units. They were my favorite subjects, and for the first time in my life, I think the person that, coming back to the practical advice, the person that was teaching us, I can't remember what her qualifications were, but I think she owned 3 homes. And at that time, for me, that was just a concept that I had never heard of before, that people would own multiple homes,
Yeah,
which sounds
yeah.
silly. And I was 18, but mum and dad were still paying off their mortgage in pounds before it even came to dollars. You know, it was such a small amount, but they were still paying it off. And there was this person that was really financially astute and was talking about compounding interest, like you were saying, your $20 to
Uh,
$20.15. And I was like, that sounds really small. And then we started to model it out to, okay, if you take this and then you add a dollar, whatever, in X
mhm,
years' time, then it looks like this. And it was like, it
mhm,
was just blowing my mind. And then I came back to, I reflect on this from time to time, the poor money mindset at home. Mum and dad, we never talked about money because they didn't know. So everything that they ended up knowing about money, I taught them and encouraged them to go and get a financial advisor to help them. So I didn't want to know about them. I was like, I don't want to know how much you've got or whatever, but you need this person too, so they can help you,
mhm,
live your future. Because I was worried that they wouldn't have enough. And
mhm,
the the takeaway that I took growing up was that money was bad, because
mhm,
there was one person that was my uncle that was a businessman, and he was quite successful. They never talked about how much, but I assumed it was millions. And the mum and dad used to say to me that he's like not a good man. It's like he's mean.
Mhm.
It's like
Oh yeah.
with money comes mean. So in
Comes
my
mean.
my
Mhm.
thinking was,
Yeah.
well, if you
Hmm.
have money, you're mean. So therefore you don't have money, and that's why we don't have money.
Yeah. Hmm.
And rather than saying we don't have as much as him, but why don't you go and spend time with him to learn? And
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
I,
Hmm.
I talk to a lot of people that still say, oh, money's not important to me. I don't want money, blah, blah, blah. And that's normally the people that don't have the money that say that to
Yeah.
justify
Yeah.
why they are where they are.
Hmm.
But I'm just interested in your thoughts around people's money mindsets and how do we get them to change it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not easy, especially when you learn at a young age that money is the root of all evil or some form of that, right?
Mm,
So in a child's neural pathways who have been taught that lesson by their parents, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. This is just how things were, right? For a child who's had that experience, they've got now a neural pathway that says it equates bad things with money, and that spills over into our life, into our childhood as well as and certainly to our adult system. What I would say to that is recognize that while there is that neural pathway and that belief system about money, that the opposite also does exist. That money is there, perhaps, it is, in my view, to support a great life. It can help support your health. It can help support your relationships in your life. It can help support and grow a business that you have. It can help you contribute and support causes and charitable efforts that are very near and dear to your heart. When you reframe money, money is just a tool. It can be a neutral thing. It's up to us to decide, is this a good thing in my life or a bad thing in my life? And when we see money as a potential tool to create a fantastic life for ourselves, then it doesn't become so evil anymore. And it's easy for me to say. It's hard to change that belief system. It takes some time. I know that. Just like it took time to develop the one side of the belief about money being, say, the root of all evil, so to speak. It
mm.
can also take some time to say, this can really create and support a great life for me also. So how do you do that? It's not easy, but you begin by just changing your habits. You change your centers that you hang out with. You change what you read. You do what you can, and perhaps even pursue some personal growth on top of it to discover and explore areas that you don't know that you don't know. And that can open up a brand new set of doors when it comes to money and your relationship with your money that would be the beginning to change that mindset about money.
One of the things that I've done is make it part of my values and beliefs. And because I've had
Yeah.
to change it because I guess the values that came from home and the belief system was that money was bad, and if you had it, you were not a
Yeah.
good person.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
like I now have more net wealth than my parents ever would have imagined, and but that's only come from a lot of hard work and focus and so
Hmm.
forth. But I've kind of made it part of my DNA as well, just like my health is my number one priority in
Hmm.
life. But my focus in those areas has helped me to be able to build my wealth. And I do not live an extravagant lifestyle at
Hmm.
all. Like
Hmm.
I only spend money really on myself from a getting better perspective.
Hmm.
I don't even have a car anymore. I,
Okay.
I don't have a car. I have an e-scooter that takes me locally, but
Very cool.
I don't have a car, and that saves me about $8,000 a year by
Hmm.
not having a car sit in the driveway because I work from home and so forth.
Good. Good.
Um,
Hmm.
but I guess I'm turned 57 in August. I'm in that phase of my life where I'm simplifying, but I also find that money kind of magnifies who you are as a person. So if you're mean, you're probably going to be meaner. If you're
Yeah.
loving, probably more
Yeah. For
loving
sure. Hmm.
and caring and so
For
forth.
sure. Hmm.
For me, it's been yeah a real journey to just include it as part of my values and beliefs. I'm not
Hmm.
showy, but I don't know whether I'd say it's maybe it's that little virtual box that sits in your head that says tick. I'm building this and it's still growing and It's working just as hard as I am, but just in the financial market sense.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, you're fertilizing your money very well. It's made a difference, and you see that in the results in your life. I would suggest to anyone that wants to have a better, say, financial existence in their life, treat your money like your important relationships that you have.
Mm,
It may sound odd and weird, but it frankly, if you look at it this way, it makes all the sense in the world. And that is, give your money tender, loving care. Just imagine all the important relationships that you have in your life. If it's your children, your significant other, your spouse, what
mm,
your what are the love languages that you demonstrate to those people in your life? Well, imagine if you spent that same element of energy to your pocketbook, to your balance sheet, to your income, to your wallet, to your purse. That sounds weird. Am I suggesting that you pull out a few Australian dollars and start hugging them in the morning? Maybe that's what it takes. But when you start to give your money love, and like I'll call it again fertilizer, watch what happens when you
mm.
start to give it positive energy and attention. Just like your important people in your life, consider your money an important part of your life too, and then see how that changes your relationship with your money and your life results also.
So let's get into the nuts and bolts because people are probably thinking, well, do I just go and play on the stock market? Do I go and buy a property, all that kind of stuff? And then, like, it's a minefield, and you can lose a lot of money by not doing it in a sensible way. I'm happy to share my approach to it is I'm very left brain. I'm very routined, very regimented. I do not want to be looking at the stock market every day, wondering whether I should buy, sell, whatever. So I
Mhm.
use managed funds and so forth. Now,
Mhm.
so obviously you're in the US, you can work with people in the US, but the principles of what we're talking about
Yeah.
are relevant globally.
Yeah.
So I sought out probably 30 years ago, someone like you to say, do you know what? We're now personal debt free. The mortgage is paid off. We want to build something else. Now that was a we, now it's just a me because there was a bit of a divorce that happened in the process there. But because we had done this 30 years ago, it now still makes me be able to be financially free now.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
perhaps you could talk about because people will be overwhelmed. Oh, who do I see and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you could
Yeah.
talk us through how you work with people and what you would recommend people do.
Well, what I would recommend that people do is you have to find out where you're standing. Where are you starting? What is your point A? And that means what does your financial picture look like? This is how I'd approach talking with anyone initially. Although people can do this on their own, but many times it helps to have a third set of outside looking inside eyes, right? With some experience behind those eyes too, right? But the first and foremost thing is where are you beginning? What's going on now that is working well, and what is going on now that's not working very well? Like identify in a dream world, close your eyes and imagine what you want your financial life to look like. What's the matter with your balance sheet? What's wrong? What's missing? Is there too much debt? Is there not enough in savings? Is there not enough of a large retirement pot of gold waiting for you? Like where's the gaps? And you identify the gaps by finding out where you are today, right? And realize that the results that you have in your life today are all because of the habits that
Yes.
you've been doing ever since yesterday, ever since last week, last month, last year, last 10 years. Your financial garden right now is blossoming or not blossoming because of those actions and those habits, the actions that you're taking and the actions that you're not taking. That's something about results is that often they're harsh, but they're always fair. And I'm not saying this from a right or wrong perspective, but if you're identifying a gap, and that's the first course of action is to identify the gap, then that kind of tells you what habits are going on right now that need to be changed, what needs to be removed and replaced with something else. They're all like grains of sand.
Yeah.
I like to make this analogy. We're either building a very beautiful sandcastle here or it's a very boring mound. It's one of the two.
I
So
see a
yeah,
lot of leakage
yeah,
in people's households just with subscriptions.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
a
yeah.
pay TV subscription,
Hmm.
the number of times that people are using something like Uber Eats or dining out a week, or how
Yeah.
many
Hmm.
overseas holidays they're having a year, and things like that. And they just say, "Oh, well, I can't really afford to do this." It's like, hang on a second, let's have a look at your credit card statements and
Yeah.
everything.
Hmm.
Okay, do you need this? Do you need this? Do you need this? And there's a lot of
Yeah.
leakage that people just don't stop and think, "Oh, geez, we better do a
Hmm.
reassessment of this."
It's very subtle. It's very subtle.
Yeah.
And this is not to say that Uber Eats, again, is right or wrong. Maybe it just comes down to how is that showing up in your life? Are you happy with the results that you have? And if not, then again, we're identifying in many cases things that have been going on like an automatic pilot that we're oblivious to, that we're blinded to. And it's hard for us as individuals on our own to identify everything that's could be going wrong or is going wrong. And that's why having an outside set of eyes looking in can be very helpful.
And so then let's say you're sitting in front of somebody, the next step, I guess really is trying to work out what somebody's capacity is, what their risk profile is,
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
what their tolerance for, like, okay, do you want a
Yeah.
lot of risk? Do you want a little bit of risk, etc.? And then you discuss an appropriate strategy as to, all right, these are the various options of where you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
invest and that
Hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah. And that part is very important and it's not to be ignored at all for sure. That's part of the initial conversations. However, after that, Rob, and this is the good news for everybody, after that, a majority of the effort comes down to the person's behavior, how they react, how they don't react, the actions that you take and the actions that you don't take. The investment selection part is vital. It should definitely be a focus. However, after that, the hard part kicks in. And that is how, when we're talking about, say, a long-term investment program, as an example, this is when the human behavior can be the worst gremlin and the worst enemy. And that's why it's really hard for people on their own to build that behavior and emotional wall in between their own psyche and the long-term investment plan, whatever that might look like for them. You need to make sure that there's not the human element to mess things up because that's a very easy temptation.
Yeah, it's almost like you need to be a psychologist, don't you, in
Yeah.
talking to people, because it can
Mm.
be very confronting and often be a fairly big life change. Like if you're at A and you want to get to Z, well, you got to go through the B and the C and everything to get there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Hmm.
it's going to take some time. There is no
Yeah.
short-term fix in any
No,
of
there's
this.
not. And
Uh,
this is, if I can say to that, that's an example of an easy human behavior mistake that many people feel like, oh, well, the key to get me there faster from A to Z is finding some shiny object or some magical and new investment that's out there that promises something bigger and better than the world has ever seen before. And in truth, many, many, many times those things are a big, big problem and a big, uh, a big catastrophe waiting to happen. So that's why, as much as it may feel frustrating, slow and steady, generally speaking, wins the race straight down the middle of the fairway. I cannot make a killing and I cannot get killed has historically been a pretty good strategy.
yeah, absolutely. Maybe we should, yeah, because maybe it's the elephant in the room. Crypto. I have a number of clients that talk to me about crypto. Personally, I do not invest in crypto at all. What's your financial advisor thought on that?
Well, I'll put it this way. Crypto has been around based on what I see. It began at or around the same year as the iPhone, 2007, more or less. And when I compare those two products with which one has created a benefit and uh, an amazing better life for us, I see the iPhone winning that race.
Yeah,
And, and if we were to shut off the markets completely, including the crypto markets, the value of crypto really is not there. Yet the value, if we shut down the markets, the value of Apple Computer will still continue. The value of Exxon Mobil perhaps, or Google, or other companies that can be invested in the public markets, they will continue to create products and services and make money and produce revenue and produce dividends for people and so on. So I guess what I'm saying is that I prefer to spend my time and energy and effort with myself and my clients with things that produce good products and services that make a difference in the world versus not.
That's right. Yeah, crypto doesn't produce anything
Not
apart from
really.
emotion. Emotion.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
It's only I only will gain money if someone else out there feels like the price of crypto is going to go up even higher than what I own it at. And
yeah,
that's the underlying value system for crypto. At least that's what's the case is today in today's world.
yeah, yeah, terrific. This has been awesome, Rick. Obviously, I also like to study high performance of the individuals that I'm working with and so forth. So, before we hitting recording, you were saying how well your business is growing and so forth. What's important for you right now in your life?
The important thing in my life is personal growth. The more that I can upgrade myself as a human being, then the better everything around me benefits. And it may, on the surface, I heard that concept for the first time years ago, and I thought that's kind of a selfish thing to say if you're just focusing on yourself. Isn't that like me, 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 me? And actually, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah,
When I when I look at myself and make sure I'm not running my own internal operating system as a Windows 95 and instead as an iOS 18 point whatever,
yeah,
and also looking for the future upgrade, then my family benefits from that. My business benefits from that. My clients benefit from that. My cats benefit from that. My neighbors benefit from that. My family benefits from that.
yeah,
Everyone around me benefits from that. So my focus, as soon as I discovered this long ago, my focus will always continue to be myself, how I can be a better person so I can be a better giver because givers gain.
yeah. I feel that through every fiber. How do you go about it? What are you doing on a daily basis to help
Oh,
with that?
well, gratitude is big. I pay a lot of attention to what I feed in between my ears and what I read, right? So I'm a big avid student of personal growth. I do take sometimes very deep courses in personal growth to boost my self-esteem because I appreciate the power of self-esteem. When I have a very high self-estimate of myself, then I feel like I am worthy of things and I am good enough for things and that I deserve things that once long ago I never felt like I did. Therefore, I never pursued them. But the truth of the matter is that we're all magnificent people. We're all magnificent human beings. And on a daily basis, I am if it's social media, I'm paying attention to those things that are going to inspire me. I'm probably not paying attention a whole lot to the news because that's a negative feed that I would really I do that from an informational standpoint, only just to kind of keep on top of the world, right? But
Yeah,
outside of that, not much. So I want to do things on a daily basis that increase and boost and enhance my self-esteem because that's the root of all my decisions. All my decisions come from, am I worthy of this? Am I deserving of this? Am I good enough for this? And long ago, I used to answer no to those questions.
mm,
And therefore, I would never take action and never enjoy things that I did deserve. And now I'm saying yes to those things because I feel very highly of myself. And that can be the case for everyone.
Isn't that so interesting? Because I mean, we're similar ages, I guess,
Yeah.
and come from different sides of the world, but we're both human,
Yeah.
and
Human
uh,
nature here.
with the success that you've built, I've been able to build, you would think, oh, you have this um, unstoppable level of self-esteem and self-image and so forth. But I think back to when I was a kid, and I was a broken little kid. I was bullied by others, but my biggest
Mhm.
bully over time was myself and what
Mhm.
I was not worthy of, what I didn't deserve, who I was. I'd often get criticism from others
Mhm.
as to who I was. I would affirm that in myself. I'm never going to be anything, etc., etc.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I do daily work on my personal growth as well, business work as well, but I'm spending more and more time, certainly this year, on my personal growth. I use AI a lot to
Mm-hmm.
help with that. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
huge. And you're
Mm-hmm.
right. Yeah, it helps build your self-esteem, your self-image. And it's not about being cocky or anything like that at
No,
all. In
no.
fact, I would say it's almost the opposite. And
Mm-hmm.
you gain such a greater understanding of yourself, and it is really for others as well. Like I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
more because of where everything that I've gone through in the last few years. I'm much more
Yeah.
vulnerable now as a man. Like
Mm-hmm.
you and I could talk about a topic right now, even while we're recording, and uh, I would quite comfortably cry here because I can feel your pain
Yeah.
or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, or they could be tears of joy just because, man, I'm so happy for you, so proud of you, Rick, for
Yeah.
being who you are and the success that you've got. And
Mm-hmm.
as a man, have no problem telling you that to you because you're a man. But years
Mm-hmm.
ago, it's like, oh, you can't cry. Oh, hang on a sec.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can't
Mm-hmm.
do that. But part of
Mm-hmm.
it comes through just developing your own confidence and everything through doing that. So I love that you are doing that and you've got such a great appetite for it because you're right. I do it for me first, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's my daughters, and then well, Whiskers benefits my cat, but then
Yeah.
all my clients and everybody else, as you were saying there, benefit from that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the wealth creation part of it is an important part of that for me as
It
well.
is. Mm-hmm. It
Mm.
is. There was probably one day where you felt like in your own mind, I'm not good enough to be a podcast host. Why would I be a podcast host, right? That was probably a long time ago because I know you're on this amazing streak with your podcast, but you're that's just one way that you demonstrate to the world, Rob, that your self-esteem is so high that you've created this podcast, this result in your life that many people admire and they would also wish that they had that in their life also and they can because you're a walking example of that. You're a
I
walking
started
example of
I started
the mental
record.
toughness of this.
Yeah, yeah. When I started, I can't even remember the year now. It was probably 2018, maybe.
Yeah.
I was recording it for one client that just needed extra attention in between sessions and stuff. So it was one person. I never thought it would go anywhere. And after a while, I thought, oh, actually, it's good for me to practice because I wasn't a confident speaker. I wouldn't be able to like just come up with questions on the spot to ask you and things like that. And now I've done over 4,000,
Gosh,
and
yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't have a problem coming up with a conversation for with people,
I
and
I believe that. I
I've
believe that.
become better at asking questions and just genuinely more curious in people. So
Yeah.
that's really cool. Just a
Good.
couple more questions for you. So in terms, because without health there is no wealth. I'm always curious to know what people's health routines are on a daily
Mhm.
basis and those healthy habits. So would you mind sharing a bit of an insight into what your healthy
Absolutely.
side looks like?
Absolutely. I'm an avid Bikram yoga student. I've been doing Bikram yoga for gosh, yeah, 23 years now.
Nice.
And there's there's a rare day where I'm not doing some kind of exercise, whether it be going on long walks. I used to jog, but now I'm 60 years old. I feel like I'm in really great shape, but I don't want to damage my knees. My
Yeah,
knees are
it's
fine, but
not great on the knees. Yeah.
I don't want to do that any longer. I have I'll call her a health coach. She may not call herself that, but I have hired someone to help oversee. I do the tracking with my Apple Watch and the number of steps, and I do a blood test every now and again and measure some vital signs and so on. And the HRV, is that what it's called? HVR, whatever. She understands all those things. So people who are in that capacity, I feel like are valuable to me as, like I say, a financial advisor looking over a person's money, for example. She
Yeah.
helps me oversee my health, so that's really helpful. My wife and I are very clean eater, conscious, with the odd exception when we're on a vacation. But for the most part, you'd be proud of what's in our refrigerator and so on. So there's a lot of angles, right? And a number of electrolytes in the cup and 8 to 10 glasses of water a day, those kinds of things, and measuring, and what gets measured gets managed. the
Yes.
waistline and the weight in the morning, and these things are important because if you leave it to our own devices, then things can go off astray, right? So
Yes. And you did mention just before about gratitude, which I put in this health basket too, because it's about your mental
yeah,
health. And
yeah,
we so often as humans, I don't know, it seems like we were built in a way that was a little bit defective, and you've got to spend your whole life trying to work out how to work you properly. But we seem to always be focusing on the future and what we don't have, as opposed to being grateful, which is what gratitude is,
yeah.
having that
Hmm.
grace in what we actually do have.
Hmm.
And that could be just in our health. I mean, I didn't ask for my heart and brain and everything.
Yeah. Hmm.
I keep asking for years for more height because I'm
Hmm.
so short. And it's like, I wish,
Hmm.
why didn't you give me
Hmm.
more height? What's going on there? But I realized that that just made me more powerful in other ways. So
Yeah.
having that grace is super important as well. So
You're right. You're very
yeah.
right. We talked about, oh, having more financial education in the schools and so on. Frankly, if I had to choose, I'd say more health education in schools if there had to be one of the two. The money part is really important, but like they say, without your health, you have nothing. A
Mm,
healthy person has got, I heard a while ago, a healthy person has 1,000 goals and aspirations in their life, and the unhealthy person only has one, and that's being healthy. So I've never forgotten that.
yeah, it's really interesting. Well, Rick, this has been amazing. It's I feel like we've only just been talking for 5 minutes, but I have a look at the clock and say that we've been talking for a while. Thank you so much for today. I love having you on the show. This is the second time we've been on here. I
Mhm,
feel so connected with you, even though I'm grateful for
mhm.
the technology to be able to connect so easily with you. I'm going
Yeah.
to give you the closing word, and thank you so much for today. If you could impart some of your years of wisdom on people, what would be your greatest advice that you could give somebody today?
I would just say work on yourself. When you work on yourself, then your life results would be exponentially better. And know that when you were born with all the magnificent qualities that any human being has. And it's just up to you to discover and uncover those windows that have shut, that have closed off those qualities. They just need to be reopened and out into the world because you've got some greatness and you need to share that with the world. And once that happens, then your life becomes even better.
So poetic. I couldn't agree anymore. Thank you so much for today, Rick.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been great, Rob.